big topic to address with you this morning. It's based on the concept of meat as medicine, but it really goes way beyond that. And it's kind of, this video has been a long time in the coming because I've been pondering about this concept for a long time. And I think it's finally come all together in my mind as I have started my carnivore diet. Yesterday was my first real day of only meat and water, and I have some reports on that. And last week, for about the last 10 days, I've been doing about mostly meat, not tracking macros, and then I added in some greens and just trying to really feel into this way of eating. So I want to make a couple of premises here before we start getting into this topic. The first one is that I have not studied carnivore and all the theory behind carnivore diets, just like I studied keto when I first started keto. I gotta say I've been kind of thrown into this experiment because one of my patients has started doing it and I wanted to follow her, and I usually experiment everything I recommend on myself, on my body, before I give it to my patients. And so I was suddenly decided that, okay, this is time to do this and see, and nothing better than try it on your own body. What I feel there is out there, and like, please correct me, chime in if I'm wrong, below the video there is space for comments. So I think that a lot of the people doing carnivore are men more than women. And especially I have not found any woman that is around my age. So I'm going to be 50 soon. So in that perimenopause, edges of menopause area with, you know, all the hormones that I need to support. So I haven't seen any reports from people with my physical experience about doing this carnivore diet. And so my question was quite like a specific question going into the diet is like, how do we support health the best? Good morning, Marianne. Thank you for watching. So how do we best support our physical health through our diet? And this is, you know, this is about everything I do, but there is more to it. Because I consider myself, try to be a truly holistic practitioner. And I also really try to look at the holistic picture in my whole life. And as humans on this planet, for our role, our place on this planet, where we're going, the decisions that we're making, and most poignantly for me, how do we keep ourselves healthy in this body, on this earth. So this is all kind of like come together through my work. And how do I keep myself and my patients healthy, the best optimal shape that you can be in at any age? And how do we age successfully, like vibrantly, strongly? Like, I want to be the best as I get older. And I am pretty happy to say that I am much better health now as I was in my youth. Anyways, I tend to sidetrack. I made myself a nice little flow chart here because I do tend to sidetrack. So up at 3 in the morning making a flow chart. First of all, let's start with some data. And here is another little disclaimer. This video is by a woman. And as a woman, I feel like I tap into my feminine intuition more than I tap into my mind, even though I'm very intellectual mostly, but I prefer to follow my intuitive knowing rather than a lot of data. I recently watched a lot of doctors speak, male doctors, and brought an incredible amount of really interesting data on protein. This was on the low carb cruise, and watched some amazing presentations. Ted Neiman was one of them, and he like just had graph after graph after graph. He's a doctor and he's a scientist, so it was really interesting to watch. And I felt like I am kind of on the other end of the spectrum because my knowledge and my expertise is not as narrowly focused on the numbers, but it's like gathering all the number, the big picture, and then being able to make sense of it from a life perspective. So a tiny little bit of data. I printed this out from my fitness pal yesterday. I wanted a pie chart and I couldn't get it. But so yesterday was my first day on 70% fat and 30% protein. And supposedly this is kind of like the hunter-gatherer ratio, between 25 to 30%, but 30% is kind of like at the upper edges of our protein. But that's where it kind of should be when we're doing this diet. It shouldn't be more than 30%. 30% is a good ratio, and what it means is that it's 1-to-1 fat to protein. So yesterday I had 55 grams of fat and 58 grams of protein. I think it's probably not entirely accurate because I had a little bit more fat than I logged. So I think we were just about equal fat and protein. And I only ate 750 calories. I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe between 750 and 800 calories. And I was happy all day. Was not hungry at all. My energy was super steady. And that's how it's been through this like higher protein experiment. Really steady energy. And yesterday my day was crazy busy. I worked out in the morning. I did my 30-day challenge that I'm doing. And then I went walking in the evening, like around 7 p.m. after I finished work, to have a break, and I wanted some time to talk to a friend, so we went walking instead of sitting. And then I went back to work from 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. and then I slept like a rock. So I think there is a lot of potential about this meat experiment, and I want to give you, so again, the perspective of a woman. And this is very little days, and I'm going to continue speaking about it. But as we are really starting yesterday, with the really serious just meat and water, let me share with you a bigger perspective of how meat can be a really powerful healing element in not just in your diet, for your gut, for your body, for your hormones, but also in your life in general. I've been studying this for a long time, you guys, and I've been reading books, and just, you know, it's a big passion of mine, holistic living and permaculture and sustainability and the whole big picture of like, where does our food come from and how can food really be medicine? Because, you know, my program is called the Healing Foods Method. If food is supposed to be healing, like there's got to be a solid base of why. And how can meat be healing? That's what we are asking ourselves, especially in this day and age where a lot of people are becoming vegan, and the vegan movement is really big, and it's really has kind of this pushy agenda that telling us that the only way to save the planet is becoming vegan and eating plant matter. And if we eat animals, you know, we are dooming the planet. So where does this kind of mentality come from? And I've been wanting to speak on this for a long time, and I didn't feel like I was ready for it. Why vegan versus non-vegan? Like, how can vegan help the planet, and why I think it's wrong? And by the way, little side note, I'm going to interview Dr. Johnny Bowden, who had an amazing presentation about that, and that's coming up on the blog. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. So I want to go back to the beginning. And you know that my passion, what I do, I dig for roots. That's what I do for my patients. If there is any of my dear patients watching, please chime in, because you can testimonial to this, like be a testament that we always dig for the roots of your disease. We are going for like the real causes, what's underneath the symptoms, the Hashimoto's or the hypothyroidism or your fibroids or all these issues that my patients come to me with. What is under there? And especially the hormonal issues. You guys know I specialize in hormones. So where is the root causes? So start at the beginning. Let's just go back to the beginnings of humanity. Where did we come from? We come from a long evolution as hunter-gatherers. And it was like hundreds of thousands of years of being hunter-gatherers versus about 8,000 years of agriculture. So there has been this steady flow of existence of humans on the planet that was pretty consistent and sustainable. The population stayed steady and humans lived in small groups that were interdependent. And there is this saying, kind of mentality that says that hunter-gatherers were not that healthy, they were really short, and they died of horrible diseases. Well, that is not true. And modern archaeology, and there is a new fancy name for a branch of archaeology, that really forensic archaeology, I think. It's looking at what our ancestors ate and how they lived and what they ate and, how healthy they were, finding their DNA. Dr. Weston Price, which is one of the doctors I studied for nutrition in my training, was probably one of the forefathers in explaining how healthy our ancestors really were. There were no degenerative diseases. And when they ate in their diets, the diets that they evolved with, they had beautiful, perfect teeth, white jaws, big skulls, big brains. They were tall, an average of 5'6" for a woman and 5'8" for a man, kind of all across, as hunter-gatherers. And, strong muscular bodies. Causes of death were mostly accidents, and they didn't die a brutal death in their 20s and 30s. They lived actually until the 50s and 60s. And there is proof, archaeological proof, that they were healthy all the way till the end. We think that our quality of life now has improved so much, and the length of age, as our age span has lengthened. But look, especially in America, where the old people are, older of us, they're mostly in homes with horrible degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia. And where did it all start? It really started with the food of commerce, or what we call processed refined foods. And before that, it started with agriculture. So agriculture really started this big turn in human evolution where things changed. So what did we eat before agriculture? We ate an animal protein-based diet with, wild findings of vegetables. We didn't raise vegetables. They were not domesticated. We didn't have domesticated animals. We hunted and gathered whatever was edible. If anybody here who's listening ever gathered some wild foods and even fruits like blueberries or, wild apples, they're very different what you get in the supermarket. So very little sugar and mostly bitter and needed sometimes to be prepared. What was readily available was animal protein. So it was meat. I know this is going to be a longer conversation, so bear with me, but there was this shift with agriculture where we became from nomad to sedentary. And instead of being traveling with the food, with the seasons, with the animal movements, we just settle down and try to accumulate land to cultivate so that we can have crops. A dramatic shift happened in that transition, not just for our diets, but also for our social structure. And we went from kind of an egalitarian society where women were honored and respected and kind of held the power equally with men because they were the bringers of life. And from there, we shifted into a male paradigm, into a more man-dominated society because men were now the driving force of labor needed to cultivate the earth. And women kind of became more tied to the reproductive role and to becoming kind of like machines to create more babies so they could create that labor that was sorely needed for cultivating the fields. Also from a communal life of the hunter-gatherers, the agricultural life got us separated into individual properties and villages, but everybody was in their own house. There was no more communal life where the babies were raised together. All the children were the children of the village in hunter-gatherer society, while in agricultural society, they were just your own. So there was a dramatic shift, and I feel like just around that time, and I have not had time to really research this timeline, but there was a moment where from our natural way of life, spontaneous flowing way of life in community, the separation started. And for me, this separation is really at the core of our modern disease, and at the core of every form and shape of disease that will be expressing itself into the Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, hormone imbalance, in diabetes, you name it. Every life habit and lifestyle habit that will generate disease, including the food and the diet changes, because we started to make our bodies wrong. And this is a really big topic right now with all the people that are, coming up and speaking about a positive body image in America these days. We have really come for the last few thousand years into a very negative body image, because starting with the big religions, the mass religions, we have been told that our bodies are wrong, that our bodies are just a clay pot, a vessel for our spirit, and our spirit is separate than our body, and our spirit will then transcend, and when we die, go to heaven, while the body will stay back and turn to ashes. There has been this split, like between soul and body, making good and bad, and that first definition, like strong labeling of black and white, good and bad. The body is bad, the soul is good. So I have a really deep question for you here, and feel free to contest and disagree, but my personal belief is that if the divine intelligence must have been right in creating us perfect, are we saying that divine intelligence was wrong and made a mistake, or created something negative that we have to live with, be weighted by as the body? Or is divine intelligence perfect and created us as a perfect combination of body and soul and, energy? That is what makes a human. For me, we are a perfect creation, just like everything else is. And if we have any little inkling of belief in a divine essence, I think that there is no denying that we are perfect creation. So our bodies are just as divine as our souls. And when this whole movement now of spirituality that wants to transcend the body and deny the flesh, and so forgo and forsake the flesh as meat, as nourishment, because we need to sublimate the spirit, and transcend this body, transcend and go. I think there is something inherently wrong with that. It just divides us at the core. And the core of who we are perfect, created, embodied energy. If, study into quantum physics and string theory, you'll see that finally science caught up to our beliefs of energy, and we are just vibration and energy at the string level, at the quantum level, at the tiniest little levels. What we perceive as solid matter is not really solid. So science is finally catching up to these ideas. And I really, really think, you guys, that reconciling the inherent goodness of our flesh, it's of the base of our healing, not just as individual, but as society and as humans on this planet. So meat, it's a big part of it, because by eating this flesh of animals, we ground into our own flesh, into our own physical body. But here is another key element of how meat can be medicine. We created a very sick system that is based on exploitation of nature and is based on exploitation of animals. The suffering of animals is not just, it's more, it's a suffering of humans. There is so much suffering in the world. And we are constantly taking in the suffering. But, when people that are vegan and want to eat just meat, they focus so much on animal suffering. Well, what about the human suffering? There is just as much, and that's what we created. We create animal suffering out of our own suffering, out of our own feelings of being divided and split at our core. So how do we heal the meat that we eat? This is not about eliminating the meat and having 4 happy cows frolicking on the pasture. The soil that we stand on, the soil that we will nourish our food, all of it needs the animals to be healthy. The soil needs diversity, biodiversity, and that does not come through GMO crops and large crops that are designed to feed very large populations on this planet. That is not sustainable. The vegan idea is not a sustainable idea, and please research into it. I have studied Joel Salatin, was an English professor turned farmer. Amazing stuff that, it brings, and how to heal, the earth, the planet from the soil up with animals in an harmonic way, letting animals be themselves and living happy, healthy lives. But so back to healing our meat and taking this meat as medicine into our body, we really need to heal the whole system. And the whole system comes from the soil to the vegetable plant realm, and then the animals, and then the animal eaters. We are at the top of the food chain, and we know that as humans, and that takes great responsibility. So in order for us to receive that nourishment of meat that we need so much to nourish our body, to nourish our spirits as well, we need to heal the whole system. And meat is kind of the key, because meat is like the top of the iceberg of sickness of the system, of animals that are kept in like abysmal conditions and fed abysmally wrong products like GMO grains that are cultivated and killing the biodiversity of our land, especially in America. Because, we have to still think biodiversity when we think about eating meat. Because, I go to South America a lot. I visit the jungle of Peru, where I study indigenous plants with the indigenous people and understanding their, a different kind of medicine and healing from a very different perspective. And there, they never had cows. They ate fish, because fish is what is there. And jungle animals, monkeys, they eat monkeys. But why? Because monkeys are sustainable food from the jungle, and so is fish. Cows in the jungle are not a sustainable food. And deforestation, because of agriculture and cattle ranching, is not sustainable, because that's not what the environment supports. So if you are in the jungle, you don't need to eat cow. You can eat fish, and you can eat monkey maybe, or mahas. There are different animals that are sustainable there. You can still have your animal protein. If you are in the desert, or if you are in the jungle, if you are in a grassland, every ecosystem has its own sustainable animal protein, as the oceans, which are now like really sick. So meat is like kind of a wider definition of animal protein in reality, but we're in America. And America, United States of America, this northern continent, was grasslands where the bison roamed. And so this is the kind of meat that is sustainable here. If we went back to the original model of sustainability on this land. And this is a big paradigm shift, okay? This is not like, we cannot continue thinking along the lines of big agriculture, big pharma, big industry, big everything, because that is not a human paradigm. And as any decadent society, if you studied, like I'm from Italy, ancient Rome became decadent and then showed all the signs of a decadent society, and then it went down. Greece happened the same. There is a Crete, happened the same. Egypt happened the same. Come on, there is a pattern here. We are right there. We are at the decadence phase of this society. How do we reinvent our role on this planet as humans in a sustainable way? We need to go back to a human paradigm. We need to go back to a human-sized paradigm. So none of these big things, like even agriculture and cattle ranching, done in a sustainable way, needs to reduce and come back to human size, meaning small sustainable farms. And also the world population, in my opinion, like this growth mentality that the growth needs to be like linear and up all the time is not sustainable. This was a moment of like, I don't know who ever thought that unlimited growth could be sustainable, but if you really think about it for 5 minutes, this planet is kind of limited, and unlimited doesn't exist on a limited surface. So containing the population in a sustainable way, in an harmonious way, just like it happened for millions of years and hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, where the population was at a pretty steady rate, and the growth was very slow, you know, and it was sustainable in the environment, in the ecosystem. So a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas presented here. This is what goes around in here. And it's all part of my why is meat a healing food? Why can meat be possibly a healing food? So how do we do this? How do we sustain it? How do we help the problem or the solution? Well, in my opinion, to be part of the solution, we need to be very, very mindful of the kind of animal protein we consume. And I would recommend finding local farmers who have sustainable practices and buying from them. A lot of people are using ButcherBox these days. I have not researched ButcherBox. I think that there are options to that. And for me, the options is finding your local meat and supporting your local farmers who graze, rotational graze, not just pasture, not just grass-fed, but rotational grazing where the soil is actually improved by the animal and not damaged. And like, you know, dry grazing and like restoring grasslands, restoring pasture. One of my dearest friends is Baji in Chico, California, who has a sheep ranch, and she has restored acres and acres of amazing biodiversity. I hope one day she'll watch this video, but you know, the work that she's been doing with her herds of sheep is incredible. And the land has been left just like 1,000-fold better by her work and her animals. That is possible. It's entirely possible. And this is driven by our choices. So be very choosy about the protein that you eat. And you know what? I don't know if eating only meat for long periods of time, months and years, is what is right for everybody. I actually think that my male body and female body have slightly different needs. And as a woman coming from a DNA of an hunter-gatherer, I think that our role was a little bit more like our diet was supposed to be more varied, because we were the ones who went out and picked stuff. And as you pick, you know, you pick and you eat. So, you know, the women also had to sample like the fruits, the roots, you know, whatever shrubs they found, sampled. And so there was a lot of diversity. So I think that, yes, the staple is animal protein, but especially for women, there might be like a part of plant matter that is really necessary, and phytonutrients that is necessary. Another thing is your microbiome, very important. And I feel like maybe for periods of time, a meat-only diet would be very healing for people who have been damaged by this food of commerce, meaning the GMO grains, the pesticides, the heavy metals that killed your gut flora, the antibiotics. How do we fix that? I have so many patients who are completely fiber intolerant. They cannot tolerate any veggies, IBS symptoms all the time, constipation, chronic diarrhea. How do we really heal from that? And I think there is a possibility for accelerated healing in a meat-only diet for periods of time. So this is just the beginning of an experiment, and I know that I talked a lot in this video, but I feel like I really wanted to get this off my chest. And I have explained more about myself, who I am, what I believe in, and the kind of work that I'm here to do in the world. I'm here for the big picture, you guys, and I'm here to make a difference. I'm here to help people get healthy. I am not a healer. I'm a health facilitator. I'm just teaching you how to claim your own healer, how to understand how to heal. And this is what I want to share with you every day, all the time. So I hope that even the few that will watch this video will, it will help you think and spread this message and spread this awareness, because I think that our survival as humans on this planet really depends on our becoming conscious of these topics that are really important. And I'll be talking more about it. This is a big topic, and about like my findings on the root of disease, and how to heal. So thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to comment underneath after the live broadcast. I will be watching and commenting back. We can have a conversation about it. And yes, have a wonderful day. This post will be on Facebook, and this video will be on YouTube eventually, maybe today or tomorrow. And please, you can find me on my blog, The Nourished Caveman. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. So Nourished Caveman, Vivica, Menegaz, I'm everywhere. Thank you for watching. Have a great Tuesday. Bye, Jean. Bye, Avara. Thanks for watching.